Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In this one, I have to address a huge problem. See over here on this shelf? These two shelves? Something's missing. All my 8-scale cars. Had a bunch of HB cars that we bought at the beginning of the year, and I sold them all. So now we don't have an 8-scale car. But have no fear, because we're going to fix that in today's video. Let's take a look. This little nice collection of goodies is going to be our new Nitro kit. A team associated B4.1, RC8B4.1. Technically, was there a B4.1, the 10-scale buggy? I don't know, that's not what today's video is about. But what I do have to say about today's video is going to be a huge, super awesome thank you to the folks over at RM.1 because they made this possible. This beautiful piece of machinery is the Samurai RM.1. It is a off-road nitro buggy engine. I'm super excited to break this in and see how it goes in our platform. Huge shout out and thank you to A-Main for sending that our way. It's been oil lapped in, not a full break-in process has been done on it yet, so we'll have to do that. I'm looking forward to it. They sent us a bunch of other Protek goodies. This is just a few of them. We'll feature more of them in the build when it's complete, but we have a Protek clutch kit that will be fitted to our engine. Very excited to use this here. Comes with all the goodies to build this up. And they sent me a few tuning parts in case I want to make it feel any different. Also being fitted to our engine is going to be this Protek 2090 header and pipe combo. Very popular combination for a nice smooth power delivery in our Nitro buggy. Looking forward to putting that in as well. A couple little engine glow plugs. The very popular wing. I've actually been running these on all of my Nitro buggies as of late. Love these wings. They handle amazing. So I'm going to get this thing put together and then we're going to take it to the track. It's going to be great. Here we go. Here it is, the RC8B4.1, completed and raced, as you can see. So let's talk first about how the build went together, the kit itself, and then all of the Protek goodies that we put in it as well. Thank you, A-Main. More on that in a second. Then we'll move on to some racing footage and talk about how the car performed. Out of the box, I give this thing 10 out of 10. I didn't have any issues when it came to how this thing went together. It's pretty common that in some vehicles, the community or team drivers will find a certain way that you have to build certain things, and then you have to know that information so that you build the vehicle correctly. It's usually not too bad, but it is a thing from time to time. I didn't have any of those issues with this vehicle. Very straightforward build, and it was a pleasure to put together. Now, as far as the starting point on setup, I'm really not an authority on this. Going from a few C-Hub cars that I've had in recent past, this is my first endeavor back into a pivot ball car. So I really didn't know what to do with setup. So I went over to the Team Associated website. I found one by Lee Setzer and I slapped it in here. And that was the baseline setup that we have with this vehicle. I'll talk about that more on my race day experience in a minute. As far as how we've outfitted this vehicle, we have the Protek Samurai RM.1 engine in here. This thing looks beautiful. Full disclosure, they did send it to me to complete this build, so thank you very much. And it is outfitted with the Protek 2090 pipe and header system as well. Very beautiful. Sounds great, looks great, love it. Also attached to this amazing piece of machinery is the Protek clutch system. I'll talk more on it when I get to the racing stuff, but it was great right out of the bag. I love the way that clutch feels. And it's black. Come on. +2 points right there already. Only weird thing I'll say is I wasn't too sure about the springs that the car came with out of the box. they seem to be very stiff. I don't know. I'm not an authority. I don't know. I don't have a ton of R&D and experience with this vehicle or its predecessor, but it just seemed like they were too stiff. Right out of the box, I was trying to get the ride height to, I believe it was like 24.26 or 24.27 ride height. And my collars were all the way up and I could not get the ride height that I was looking for. So I looked at a couple other setup sheets and I found that the Techno green Buggy rear spring, I think is what it's called. I'll put the part numbers and stuff down below for you guys. That we have in the rear. And then in the front, I have an HB Gold. Now it looks like Spencer is running some, of course, super top secret discontinued TLR Evo springs because of the coil and thickness that they are. Seem to work very well on this platform. I don't know, I don't have them, but they have a stiffness rating that is almost identical to an HB Gold front spring. We put that in there for a spring package that is somewhat similar to what some of the team guys are running. That might change in the future, but that's what's on the car as we speak. Take a look at this as I'm talking about it, make sure I'm not missing any option parts on here. One thing I thought that was interesting about this is its radio tray assembly can be adjusted. It has carbon fiber plate system that can be either fully connected to the battery and the receiver box, or it can be disconnected in a couple different ways. It's supposed to give you some tuning options when it comes to chassis flex. I built it with everything connected, mostly because if I do any sort of maintenance or cleaning to this thing on race day, if everything's connected, you just take all the screws out on the bottom and the whole thing comes out. So for a convenience standpoint, I really like that. If I'm going to get super serious about dialing a setup and achieving a certain particular feel, maybe I'll play around with disconnecting or taking some of these carbon plates out, but for now, they're all in there, and that's why. One note before we get to the racing footage here. Going back to a pivot ball car, I can really appreciate the cost effectiveness for tuning options when it comes to the caster angle of the front end geometry. With this, it's just a matter of moving some clips around front to back and the whole thing will go forward or come back, and it's incredibly cheap. When I did it with my TLR car and my HB car that I had recently, you had to buy a $100 option part just to get one variance and adjustment. I don't want to say this is a bad thing. It's kind of the nature of a C-Hub car. It's really your only option with the way the technology currently is. So going to this, I was very pleased that I can play with that adjustment if I want to, and I don't have to spend $300 just to have 3 different options. Completing this build, I'll run through some of the parts that I have in here, is going to be a pair of Protek 170 SBL servos. This is the faster of the servos. I have used the TBL, the torque option. I just didn't really like the steering feel that it gave. It seemed a little slow for my liking. And the SBL holds up just fine in a 8-scale Buggy application so far. I haven't had any issues. I've used it in my TLR car, I've used it in my HB cars, and now I've used it in this thing with great success. I think it's probably overkill to have it for the throttle servo, but I figured why not have matching servos in there. Looks nice. I will put a electronic switch in this thing. I kind of just had short-sighted building plans where I was putting it together and I realized, oh, I don't have my backup switch that I thought I had. No worries, I'm going to put a Protek electronic switch in there in the future. Hidden under this radio tray is a Protek receiver battery as well. And last thing, if I haven't mentioned it already, is this Protek wing. I see that there's a lot of people out there running the Lexan wings now. Again, I think those were a thing maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and now they seem to be back. I ran the Lexan wings in the past, and they're nice, I guess. They're lightweight, but the first few crashes and those things start to look really crunchy. So this plastic, flexible plastic option of these wings, they seem to last a very long time and they're very lightweight, very customizable. I think it's a great option, especially if you're going to crash a few times on race day like myself. I think this wing is the way to go. We'll segue into race day with our tire option. We have gone with the Raw Speed Mach 1s. I started the day on super softs, Florida, we're already getting 90+ degree heat as we approach the summer months here at the time of this video. Those pretty much melted in one run. So I went to softs because that's all that I had with me. And those seem to last about 2 runs. The track that we're going to be going to is Epic RC Complex up in Newport Richey, Florida. And they typically have a very high bite surface and it's very abrasive. So if you go there with some super soft compounds and it's a little bit hot outside, be prepared to burn through some rubber. So we went into race day with an engine that hadn't been broken in and a car that hadn't been run yet. So I was prepared for disaster in some respects, but I was pleasantly surprised at how easy it was to break in this motor and the performance that it gave me after a few sessions of break-in time. Let's jump to this racing footage and then I'll come back and talk to you guys about how this racing experience went.
All right, clear him out, clear him out. Clear him out, clear him out. Down and quiet.
Here we go. This one's start. Oh, outside the track. Perfect spot at this one, excellent job. Everybody keep working, keep working. Keep your hat on a swivel, please. Here on this, we have a lot going on here early on. We got Ryan Harris moving on up from the 4 to the 3. We got Mike Lyon moving up from the 8 to the 5. We got Cole moving up from the 11 to the 7. One ahead, 19 to go. Holy moly, Trent Walker with a 32. We got Ryan Harrison to go with the 33.4. Mike Meyer only 1.6 seconds back. He's in the 3 spot trying to catch Mr. Ryan Styles Harris. Be sure to check it out on YouTube. Got Darren Jacobs. Shouts out Stan Jacobs. Put up $100 to this one here. We got Mike Pilates. You looking good? Marshall, you're doing a great job. Thank you so much. So we're now 143, 18 minutes to go. It's Walker, Jacobs, and Harrison, 1, 2, 3. Mike Meyer, Barani, and Strauss with 4, 5, and 6. Got a big standing up now. So we do have a lot of close battles early on. The entire pack only separated by 21 seconds. We got one flamed out, holding high. Oh, we got, looks like we have a time buckle, or maybe a rod or something. Starboard's definitely hanging out there. We got 215 in, 17. Alright guys, Trent Walker, he's already got a 6-second lead. And word is he's going to put a 2-minute lead on the entire team. That was the word. I'm not going to say that up. But it makes it interesting. I'm calling a 2-minute lead. Trent Walker keeps this pace up. He's got a 37 on pace. And we're not just 35 in a row. And we're only 15% of the race, not even 10%. And at this point, Trent Walker, he's the one to beat. He is the one to beat. But there's Jacob, looking really good with a 33-1. He's only 6.7 seconds back. Icefire, only a second back for Jacob. And Icefire works for 3. I'll get it on you, boy. Okay. I got you. I saw him going to lovely. Come on. it's funny. Yeah, watch out for him. Alright guys, give us a minute. Quick starting update here. Just a minute, guys.
So, after my GoPro died 12 minutes into my main, I think it was because it was so hot, and I normally run a foam cover on my GoPro. Do I have one around here? I normally run a foam pad over my GoPros, and I forgot that in Florida during peak summer months, the GoPros tend to overheat, and I can't use them as much as I'd like. So that's probably why my GoPro shut off. Anyways, I DNF'd in that main. No surprise, Ryan up to his good old-fashioned Nitro methods. I probably could have finished the race, but the tune of the engine started to change drastically, and it had flamed out a couple times. The short answer was I should have listened to my friend who was like, hey, did you change your glow plug after you did all of that break-in in the morning and afternoon? And I said, it's fine. I'll change it the next time I come race. The engine was not happy. That glow plug had definitely gone south for the winter and was not coming back. So after the race day was over, out of curiosity, I ripped that glow plug out, slapped a different one in, and the engine ran perfectly fine. Aside from my lack of preparation and knowledge when it comes to properly tuning and running a Nitro engine, this thing honestly performed amazing. From the moment I fired it up in the morning, it had a perfect idle all day long. You can ask anybody in the pits, they were like, wow, that thing is new, you've never broken it in before? I was like, yeah, it's great. The other thing that I really liked about this Nitro engine compared to my experience with other OS engines I've had in the past, I've always loved my OS engines. Incredibly reliable, they give me lots of power. I haven't really had anything to complain about. The one thing that I wish I could have tried different, enter this engine now, was something that put the power delivery in a slightly different area of the power band. It could be just my tune, but I really feel like this motor puts a little bit, it takes a little bit of that bottom hit away and puts it more mid and towards the top. I loved it. It made the engine very predictable, very easy to drive. It gave me more confidence as a racer. I really like going on and on about this motor because it's fun to try something new, and it felt really good. So I've linked it all down below in case you guys are looking to grab one. Thanks again to A-Main for letting me run this motor. Let's talk about the car itself. Like I said, we started with that setup sheet that I have down there from Lee Setzer. The diffs are at 10K, 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 with I believe the LTC gears in the front and rear diffs and the HTC gears in the middle. If I was going to go back and run that day all over again under those exact circumstances, I think that what I would have tried is gone up to 20K diff fluid in the front and maybe go to 15 in the rear. The car had so much steering, had a tremendous amount of steering, and the rear end actually had a lot of stability despite a little bit of an imbalance in the setup. It was still manageable. For those of you tracking along with cars that you've seen in my social media, I had the HB World Spec car, the Nitro car, and the E-Buggy, and the Truggy. I never really felt comfortable with the Nitro car in particular. It had a lot of mid-corner rotation, and the on-power stability, I could just never get something to work that made me comfortable. The first couple tanks where I went out in practice and was starting to drive this thing at like half throttle to finish the break-in period, I was noticing that it had that initial steer, some mid-corner rotation, and then the rear end would just plan itself on power. It did a really good job. Comparing it to what I had just run previously, the World Spec car, I was like, wow, this thing has a lot of on-power stability compared to what I was used to. So I handed my radio to Kenny Setzer, and he was like, whoa, this setup has a lot of rotation, and I have a little bit more on-power stability in my car, Kenny, his car. And I just kind of looked at him, I was like, wow, really? Like, you think that's unstable? And me, knowing what I had just driven previously, I was like, wow, this thing feels great. So I'm looking forward to continuing to playing with the setup of this car, because I know that Kenny and Nolan and Sean and a couple of the other local fast AE kids down here, their cars have a little bit more on-power stability than mine. So gonna keep playing with the setup, but even if I had to drive it as is, I give it like a 8.5 out of 10, just as it sits. So this was a really fun build. Thanks again to the folks over at amainhobbies.com for completing this build and giving me a really awesome platform to run in my Nitro program. I'll probably get the e-buggy here as soon as I can to get ready for some more FRCC events here in the Southeast with the fabulous Elite RC Productions crew. So I'm looking forward to continuing my 8-scale adventure and look for more of these RC8B4.1s in the near future. Thanks you guys for your continued support, liking, commenting, subscribing. Just in case anybody was curious, I have no official affiliation with Team Associated. I made a post at the beginning of the year that said I'm just running no chassis sponsors this year. Just trying stuff and seeing what I like and then sticking with it if I like it. So I did try the HB cars and I ran them for several months. They were okay. They didn't suit my driving style at the end of the day. So I sold all of those. I bought them, so I sold them, and I have bought these. There is no exchanging of dollars between me and a chassis brand of any kind. It's just us having fun at the track and running what we want and making some fun, helpful videos with that stuff. If you guys are looking to build a Nitro car and you're curious about any of the stuff that I've used, I've linked all of the cars and parts and goodies down below for your guys' information. I'll see you in the next one, guys. Peace.
I got a good thing coming. So